afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. I'm here with Gary, Galactic Gal.
Hello, my lovely Karen. Lovely to do. I haven't done one for a while, and it's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to speak to you again, Gary, and have a hangout with you. We have quite good hangouts, so yeah, and obviously your mind, the way you see things. I've got this picture of Alec Baldwin up, so you want to talk about that, yeah?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the same as sort of like this other stuff that's been going on for the last couple of years. Like, sometimes you just when you're a trooper, you just see fallacies and things, and I thought to myself straight away. I thought, I don't know, this don't look right to me. Could it be possible, like some other staged event and not a false flag, a hoax? And I thought, well, would they really take sort of like live bullets onto a stage set? And the strangest thing is, my life works in strange ways. I was down my local gym, and I met a girl down there called Charlotte, and she's very probably might be listening to this because she's going to subscribe. And she's actually, see, God does these little snippets for me, Karen. She's actually a filmmaker, and she travels all around the world. And I thought, oh my God, what a wonderful girl to start speaking to about what's happened. So I said, excuse me, love. I said, as you're a filmmaker and you tell me you travel around the world, do you sort of like take live sort of like rounds on a set? And she said, no, it don't happen. Why would you? Why would you take live rounds onto a set? It doesn't make sense. I mean, it's completely illogical. You wouldn't. When you think of all the films that are made over the years, there's been thousands and thousands of westerns, and where they have sort of like, you might have sort of like cowboys and Indians with hundreds and hundreds of guns. This would have happened more often, wouldn't it? The occasional sort of like time when they actually sort of like someone stuck in a live round would have happened.
Who took the live? I'm just asking. So, just very quickly, if you hear any clunky, I'm just having my lunch. So sorry about that. But who took the live bullets there then, Gary?
Well, this is it. I mean, apparently, like they're trying to find out. This is a strange thing, really, because no one seems to be holding their hands up with it. The ultimate responsibility is with Alec Baldwin, apparently, because it was his film he was making. So responsibility goes to him. But obviously, there must be someone there who's in charge of army and whatever who sort of like hands out the rounds.
So has he been arrested then?
No. There's an ongoing investigation at the moment. He hasn't actually been arrested, but there might be a chance that he could get charged with manslaughter, which I don't think he will. But
he would take live ammunition onto a set.
Exactly, it doesn't make sense, and this is what she was saying. She said to me, "It just don't happen because you're not going to do it. You wouldn't have it nowhere near a set." Now, it's to me. I see in the paper this morning there was an article about it, and you see him dressed up in Halloween garb a couple of days ago, and he's actually got Cosmic Cat spotted this actually. He's got a hat on like with devil's horns. Now, would you really go to a Halloween party a few days after you shot someone? I would think not, wouldn't you?
No.
It doesn't. It leaves a nasty taste in the mouth. I mean, if I was at a Halloween party and he turned up dressed up in a Halloween garb, I'd say to him, I think it's in very bad taste, mate. You sort of like turning up here.
Hang on, Ellie's come upstairs. Ask what she thinks. Ellie, have you heard about Alec Baldwin? He's an actor, and supposedly he was making a film, and they used a prop gun.
Oh, yeah, I have heard about that, yeah.
So what's your thoughts about that? Well, why would they take live ammunition onto a set?
I don't think it was live, was it? It wasn't.
No, I don't mean the footage was live. I mean live ammunition. I mean real ammunition.
No, it wasn't. It was fake, wasn't it?
What? So it was fake ammunition and it killed someone.
I don't think it was real. I don't know. George told me about it. I don't know.
Oh, there you go. So there's loads of different stories about it then, because she was told it wasn't live ammunition.
I don't think it was.
When we say live, we just mean real. Sorry, that's what I mean.
No, I don't think it was real. I thought it was just a prop.
The prop killed the person.
Well, no,
I can't see that can happen because it also with the
one second, Gary. 1 second. Let her finish and then you talk. Sorry. That's all right, Gary.
Sorry.
No, Gary, it's fine.
No, he shot it,
Oh, so he thought the gun wasn't loaded, and it was loaded with a prop, and the prop killed the person. That's it?
Honestly,
That's not what I heard. I heard it was a live. I heard it was a live round because it actually went into someone else. After it went through that young lady, it actually went into someone else. If it was a blank, I mean, blanks have been known to kill people in the past. You're not going to get a blank go through one person and then go into someone else. No chance. There's no way. And I thought a blank had to be very, very close
Ellie
by
doesn't know.
for it to cause any.
It's a bit strange, isn't it? So what it looks like is that they were using a prop. He didn't think it was loaded, and it killed the person.
But I think it was loaded with a live round because I can't. A blank could sort of like burn you. I can't see a blank going through you, and then also.
Should we just look it up quickly, Gary? Gary, should we just look up the information? 1 second, then we'll stop the recording just for a moment, and we'll just look up what they're actually saying. So we thought we'd just go and look up what the headlines are. It says "Call of Cold Gun, a live round, and death on film set." So that makes it look like it's real ammunition.
Yeah. Now, you know another thing as well. I've been thinking about this. I've been racking my brain. Could it be like it was some kind of ritualistic? If it did actually happen, the way we've been told, some kind of ritualistic sort of like sacrifice, because it's a similar thing to John.
Who died? Who died?
Some woman that was a choreographer or something on the set. I don't know. Annie, her name was or something.
So why was he firing? Just asking. I'm not having a go or anything. But why was he firing the gun at her?
That's a very good point. She wasn't actually in the film. She was like part of the set that, you know, they have like loads of different people. Then they choreography.
Is it because he was firing it? She got in the way, but she was so close to the bullet. That's why it killed her.
Yeah, but I mean, it was still a live round. You shouldn't be using a live round on a film set, should they?
Hmm.
You're not going to lose. See, it's very suspicious. Now, it also went in. If you get it up, it also went in someone else afterwards. It killed her outright.
Okay, one second. Here it says Alec Baldwin discharged a prop gun on the movie set, killing a crew member and wounding the director of the film, Rust.
That's right. It was called Rust, yeah.
But that was the director he got.
It was the director. But the thing is, this has happened before, hasn't it? Like Brandon Lee got shot. Which, and I say another
but they just like to get rid of that character, as far as I can see. And he's probably still alive, and he's just another actor. Because I think we did one on him. He's just another actor. That's all now.
It's just another actor. But another thing as well. There's a strange thing with that. There's a strange Mandela effect with regards to like Bruce Lee. No, and I was about 14 or 15 at the time when Bruce Lee died. And now they're saying he got shot as well. And I remember him having an anodine tablet.
Yeah, it was an anodine tablet, they said. They said it was just he took some tablets.
There's also, but the thing is, Karen, because you're old enough to remember, but the thing is, because I'll tell a little story. I went to see Enter the Dragon when I was about 14 or 15. I weren't
so did I.
I put a load of cards in my shoes so I looked 18. But anyway, there's a Mandela effect. In some sources now, they're saying like he got shot as well, and I know he didn't. I know for a fact Brandon Lee got shot, his son, supposedly, but there's also saying that Bruce
don't forget
Lee
the press lie, Gary. The press lie about everything, so you don't know. The press lie about everything.
They lie about everything. I mean, how do we know that Bruce Lee actually died? To think that someone was so fit like an anodine tablet, and he took an anodine tablet like and died, it doesn't make sense. It's a very bizarre thing. Now I'm wondering whether sort of like, you know, that woman is still alive, this director or whatever. How did she get in the way in the first place if they were shooting a film? And then the bullet went out. It's like the magic bullet again, like Kennedy. It went through one person and then went into another. Someone else got wounded as well, didn't they? It's very, very bizarre. I mean, there is another avenue that some people are saying that she was meant to be writing a book apparently about Hollywood. Where I read this, I can't remember now. It's in one of the papers, and I'm wondering like whether she was going to sort of like name a few people in Hollywood, and maybe sort of like she might have been deliberately taken out. Someone got in on the set if it did actually happen, as we've been told, and change the blank bullet for a live round. I mean, you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I mean, we go back to John Lennon in 1980, apparently, that march happened that supposedly.
They've got a T-shirt on here, right? I'll just show it. It says, "Guns don't kill people. Alec Baldwin kills people."
That's right. I see that. And the thing is, if you go back to sort of like all the way back to 1980, I was 20 or 21 then, and John Lennon got killed. Apparently, the concierge wasn't the concierge that was there the day before. It looked like it was a CIA hitman or something. And you know, I'm not going to turn around and say like a hitman got onto the set and sort of like changed the bullet over to a live round. But it just seems a bit odd. It all seems very odd. And for me, for him to sort, you thought his wife would have turned around and said, let's suppose that it's all true as we've been told, right to the letter, right, Karen. You thought his wife would have turned. Apparently got 6 children. You thought the wife would have turned around and said, I think it's in very bad taste that we're going to this Halloween party. You know, we shouldn't go. You just killed someone the other day. He turns up there like with a hat on, like with horns.
Let me just find that one. 1 second, I'm going to stop it and find it. Right, so there he is with all his children. He's got lots of little children now, and then he's got this hat with like horns on, and he's smiling. And I don't know if I'd feel like that of killing someone a couple of days before. It's
just in very bad taste. You know, like it doesn't. And
he's killed a woman. You know, like it's bad enough if he killed a man, but killing a woman, I don't know. Yeah. That would leave more of a taste in your mouth, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he wounded someone else as well.
I mean, not that it's a bad taste he's not going to get from killing a man, but just, I hope everybody understands what I'm saying.
It's all in very bad taste, Karen, but if it's true, you know, a lot of people would turn around, because if I was at that party, if I went to a fancy dress Halloween party, I certainly would have gone up to him, even if I didn't know who the bloke was. Say, I was just inviting Alan Baldwin there, I'd say, I think you've got the cheek of the devil, Sonny Jim, coming here. Be honest with you, Tosh, you know what I mean? After what you've done the other day, I'd really lay into him, I would. Verbally.
Yeah, it says here, Lorraine Kelly calls out Alec Baldwin and wife for bizarre Halloween post for tragedy.
Yeah, it leaves a nasty taste in the mouth, doesn't it? If it's all true, I mean, you know, you'd be devastated. I mean, and you see him smiling like in that photograph, and then also I've seen him in other newspaper clips where he's smiling, and I think to myself, hello, this don't seem right. It just.
Well, you know what usually happens? The press lie, nothing's real, and this is why they don't have any feelings about it, because they didn't do it.
Because it didn't happen in the first place. Now, we can spot it as clear as a bell. Now, you know, most truthers out there would look at that photograph and the other ones we see after the event, supposed then, and we'd say, like, well, that leaves a nasty taste in the mouth. You know, I mean, I'd be devastated. If it was me, I'd be crying my eyeballs out. I'd be thinking about taking my own life. I thought I've killed someone accidentally, you know, or on purpose. If she did die the way we've been told, like, and it was because she was going to blow the whistle off of Hollywood, which is not beyond the realms of possibility. Only she knows that, if she's still alive, or is she sort of like, is she sort of like taking another role? Who knows? I mean, you know, listen, I'm not going to mention his name, but you know, supposedly across the pond, like, a well-respected like truther that's recently passed away. A lot of people are saying now that they can't find an obituary of him. So you know, it begins with R, his first name, and his second name begins with S. I'm sure.
Oh, you mean Rob Stieber? Well, you can say it.
Yeah, you said it. Well, you said it. Well, apparently,
and Russian Vids did a hangout about that, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, I was watching a video this morning, like, and one of the people on the hangout, I'm not going to mention her name, she might not like it, but she said, like, she tried to look for his obituary, and like, you know, because obviously they're going to be, when you die, like, you have an obituary, and sort of like it says time of death and how he died and what, but they can't find one of him. So she's saying, like, is he taking on another role now? Was he? Because a lot of people thought he was CIA anyway. Has he sort of like finished that role? Listen, if he has passed on, like, and I feel terrible what I'm saying now, but things have got to be said. I'm not the first trooper that is saying this. That sort of like, is it the fact that he's played out a role because we all know he was wearing masks and he was sort of like I don't know whether he was actually selling masks, but he was definitely seen in videos wearing masks, which seems a bit strange, like if he's one of our community. I had my doubts about him a long time ago. He looked very, to me, very sort of like Agent Smithy, like out of the Matrix. He looked like one.
I was never, I don't mean to be horrible, but I was never sure of him. I never asked for a hangout. I asked for a hangout with him once, years ago. And I did talk to him once when we were out. Russian Vids was there.
Right.
We were out on a, we were out and we were with them on the hangout. But I never really liked him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Russian Vid has already sort of like picked up on this. He thinks like he hasn't really died at all, like, and he's played out his role. And because he looked like a reasonably fit person, he's a God-fearing bloke apparently. What God, I have no idea, but he
Hang on
looked like
Hang on a second, Gary. So that's a picture of Rob Skeeber, but I myself was never. I don't know. I just never really got into him.
Well, I've got to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of truthers out there had their doubts about him for a long time, and maybe he was having his cover blown, and he done what he was meant to do. Maybe he was put in place for this particular moment. Because now, I'll tell you something. I see like a video where he was talking about sort of like COVID. He didn't actually call it by that name back in 2012, and it almost assimilates to the letter what's happening now. Now, how did he know about that then? It seems very strange how someone would know about that, the situation that we're in now, all those years ago. I mean, was it a lucky guess, or did he have like?
I don't know. I just did not feel that vibe for him.
Yeah. Did he have sort of like information already? Was he preempted on the current situation? I have no idea, and he was there to play out.
It's so awful, isn't it, Gary? You just don't know who to trust. I mean, you and me know each other, so it's different, but you just don't know who to trust.
Well, I mean, could it be that he might have been? Listen, this is a scenario. He was put into place, so sort of like they're saying now that on his death certificate, like he died of COVID, and so to say to other people in the troop community, oh look, one of your owners actually died. You're denying it, and one of your owners died of it. So he's played out his role, and now he's moved on to something else because people said they met him in the flesh, but we just don't know anymore, do we? We don't know what's going on. It does seem a bit suspicious because he was supposedly a God-fearing guy, and he used to do that.
He wasn't that old, was he either?
No, he was younger than me. He done the Bible stuff with Zen Garcia. I've seen a few of them. Very knowledgeable on that subject. I mean, it weren't really my cup of tea, but it just seems a bit another weird, strange death. I mean, if it was true, could he have been taken out? I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. If he did actually die, maybe because he was like rushing along the truth. I don't know. We just don't know, do we? But I know someone's looked into finding his obituary, and at this particular moment in time, they can't seem to find it. It's a very strange situation. It's back to this Alec Baldwin palaver. If it is for real, how did it happen? I mean, the thing is, this is what I can't get my head around, Karen. If you get some old tramp down the street was kicked to death by a load of geezers coming out of a pub, which has happened in the past, what happens is the feds come along and they just take everyone away in the pub, the whole lot, doesn't matter if you was involved or not, and take you in for questioning. All them people on the film set, how comes they all weren't dragged in for questioning? They said they might be, but at this particular moment in time they haven't, and it just seems very strange.
Well, don't forget the press lie about everything.
Well, I think it is, because I think everyone would have been. That's what this girl was saying. She said she'd have thought everyone would have been dragged in for questioning, because it would be the ideal way to murder someone. If you wanted to murder them, you could sort of like slip in. It's like slipping a Mickey thing into a drink, but rather than that, you're putting like a live bullet into a chamber of a gun to kill someone, and then it's an ideal Mancunian candidate. You're getting someone else to actually pull the trigger. You know, is Alec Baldwin actually a Mancunian candidate without knowing? I mean, I can do the job myself. I can slip a bullet in there. But how did this happen? How did this actually happen in real terms? Think about it. Taking live rounds onto a set. Why would you listen? If there's only people in the chat.
Gary? Oh, we've lost you. Oh, you're back now.
Hello?
Yeah, you're back.
Oh, you're back, yeah. Do they take live rounds onto film sets? If they do, why would they? It doesn't make sense to me. It seems slightly illogical.
Oh dear, excuse me, I'm sneezing and coughing here. Oh, another sneeze. I don't know what to make of it. I just, part of me thinks, oh, no.
It's part of the...
Because if it really happened, there'd be a great big investigation.
This is my point. He would be the whole lot would be dragged in because you've got to think to yourself, right? He pulled the trigger. Who loaded the gun?
And you know what else they do? They'd stop the filming.
They stop the filming straight away. And I'm wondering if it's sort of like, if you remember, like Brandon Lee was making The Crow, and I think they got another actor in to carry on like the rest of the film. And of course, the viewing figures will be up because when that Rust comes out, you're probably going to find that everyone's going to want to go and see it, see what it's all about. So, listen,
also, Mike Baldwin has got to be one of them. Alex Baldwin, rather. He's got to be one of them, definitely.
Yeah, Mike Baldwin was in Coronation Street, wasn't he?
So Alex
and
Baldwin.
he definitely is dead. Alec Baldwin, yeah. He's one of a few brothers, aren't they? And they all seem to get work. I think he's one of 4 or 5 brothers. And they all look alike. They could play one another if they wanted to. But to me, I don't care what anyone says.
Joe, I told you what happens. They go in, they film them for 10 minutes, and their whole career comes from that 10 minutes because everything that they make will be a cartoon after that. So you're going to be playing in a film, and they just add the cartoons. None of them are real. So this whole thing where they're making it, it's just, oh look.
So basically, what the situation is that she might not even be dead anyway, and it's like part of the act, and it was always meant to go that way. Because to me, he doesn't seem like a bloke that has accidentally or on purpose has shot someone. If I shot a woman accidentally, I mean, I'd be bad enough for a man, but a woman, I don't think I'd ever get over it, Karen. It would ruin my life. It would literally, if I was him, I'd be devastated. It would really sort of like end my life pretty much. I'd be a walking zombie for the rest of my days because to me it all doesn't make sense. Same thing again. We're seeing fallacy in things like everything else. All the things that we've spoke about when we've done podcasts. When things you've only got to have sort of like a brain cell and you start dissecting things and you think, well, hang on a minute, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And the reason why it don't make sense because it don't. And maybe it didn't happen at all. And I'm sorry, sort of like for the woman's husband. But I mean, if I was a husband, I want to kill Alec Baldwin, mistake or no mistake. I'd go hunting.
Well, just say the husband's probably in shock right now.
He's in shock when he comes. If it did actually happen, because the ultimate responsibility is on Alec Baldwin because apparently this Rust is his film. And he had overview on everything, so he should have got the top weapons guy in to sort of like make sure that live rounds weren't on set. It doesn't make sense to me how a live round could sort of like end up because like I said at the beginning of this, how my mind works, Karen.
Well, you don't know whether he was set. I mean, like if you took it that he's a real actor and it was really happening, then maybe he was set up. We don't know the truth,
do you think it was a Mancunian, like Sirhan Sirhan? Now, apparently, Sirhan, if it did happen, when he killed Robert Kennedy, afterwards he had no recollection of doing it. It's like he was sort of like brainwashed and hypnotised to shoot Robert Kennedy. And the thing is, he's a Mancunian candidate, and if it did happen, the way we've been told. How do we know that Alec Baldwin was just a Mancunian candidate? And this time he wasn't even hypnotised. Basically, he was she was done away with because she was like lifting the lid on what's going on at Hollywood, and it's a way, an ideal way of getting rid of her. But
I think,
you know,
though, if it was me, it would have changed him as a person, personally.
I think so. If you killed someone, you're not going to go dress up in Halloween garb a few days later, because I would see, we're picking up on these things. I would sort of like, if I was his wife or his brother, one of the other brothers, I'd say, I can't believe that you're sort of like getting dressed up at Halloween. It's in very bad taste. You should be walking around, you know, in a dark suit, like ashamed of yourself.
Well, basically, I think that he should. I mean, maybe it was a stance to go out. That was the whole point. But I think he should just sort of blend into the background and not be pointed out. He's pointed out now.
Yeah, and I mean,
but don't forget, they love doing this to us. They love to see our reaction, and all they're doing is making the drama to see our reaction, to see what we noticed and what we didn't notice.
And it's truth in plain sight. I mean, the thing is, you know, he's doing that probably knowing that he's going to get a reaction from it from people. Because you know, if I walked into my local pub down here, Karen, because you know, as you know, like, I've done that Stoptober thing, and yesterday I went out and had a few drinks. We was originally meant to be doing this show yesterday, but the sound quality in the pub is diabolical. But you know, if I walked into a pub at a weekend or something, like, and Alec Baldwin come in, I'd go up and have a right go at him. I really would. I don't care if he hears this. You know, and I would do. I'd go and have a right go at him. I'd say, like, you know, I can't believe, like, that a few days after you shot someone, you know, you're walking around a lot of Halloween garb, which is very bad taste. You know, and why your wife never picked up on that, I have no idea. Maybe people in Hollywood that have got more money they can ever spend, like, a bit differently than us, Karen. I mean, I don't know. I know my mother, God rest her soul, she was still alive. Like, if I did that and I'd turn around and say, oh, I'm going to a Halloween party, she'd have gone bananas. She'd have said, no, you're not. She'd say, I'll drag that bleeding Frankenstein-like outfit off of you. You know, you go up to your room, even as old as what I am, she would have really cussed me down. I just find it all very sort of like suspicious myself. We're not being told the truth. These are the possibilities. Either she wasn't killed at all, and it was some kind of sort of like some kind of thing to sort of like get people to go and watch the film. Either she was a sacrificial sacrifice, a satanic sacrifice, and she was actually killed by him. But he didn't know like there was a bullet in the gun. I can't see how he'd have known there was a bullet in the gun and actually done it. I mean, he's not the hitman type, is he? So it's one of the possibilities. Maybe she isn't dead at all now, you know. So we don't really know. You know, it's another one like Rob Skeeby. You know, it's all very suspicious. It looks all too contrived, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So
I don't know what to make. Yeah, we'll move on. Hang on a second.
We'll move on. So I want to do a little bit about William Shatner.
Right, we've got a picture of William Shatner up now. I mean, I was just saying to Gary, from this person here who's Captain Kirk, is he the same person? I don't know.
Well, what I find very strange is if you remember...
His nose has completely changed. His nose has got 4 times the size as the man who played Captain Kirk.
Well, he is 90 years old apparently, but he doesn't look 90, but he looks grossly overweight, and I thought it was very strange that he went up in that.
Well, I did that one, Gary. That wasn't real.
Well, to be the oldest man in space, but I'll tell you what I find very strange. If you remember the fake Apollo missions, like back in the 60s, right? These guys had to be super fit. So they used to go on these centrifuges, and they used to be in the gym every day. They used to, keep themselves tip-top sort of like condition. None of them had an ounce of fat on it, You know, you look at Buzz Aldrin, he's an old man now, but at the time, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins and all these other guys, they had to go all through this training to be super fit. And then all of a sudden, you've got this guy coming along, 90 years old, probably hadn't been at the gym for about 35, 40 years. They stick him onto sort of like a phallic-looking sort of like spacecraft, going up to sort of like supposedly to space, 63 miles and whatever, and come down. just like that, you know, no training or whatever. There's no medical team. If you remember, like back in the 60s, like they always had like they had the fire engines there, didn't they? They had like the ambulances just in case something was untoward was to happen. But in all these current sort of like little sort of like rockets, they don't have none of that. They don't have no sort of like medical team on the ground in case something was to happen, and they just all sort of like land, and then and afterwards they come out and they start having a chin wagging and one thing and another. It's all, I find it all so strange because it's almost like they're saying to you, look, if you believe this, you've got to be absolutely bonkers. You know, we've got no support team on the ground or anything. And I found it when I was watching it. I mean, we know it's fake anyway, but you will speak to some people that will actually believe that. I could go down a pub at night and I'm sure I'd speak to someone and they'd say, oh yeah, that William Shatterlight, you know, he's actually gone into space for real and all that. And if I turned around and said to them, oh, you know, like it was just all rubbish, like it was all CGI and all that, they'd bite me head off. They'd say, oh, I can't believe you're saying that, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I just think to myself, it's so strange, you know, an old man like that, going into space, like, you know, he's completely out of shape. And like you said, he looks similar to the captain, because I actually still watch Star Trek. It's on every night on Blaze Channel at 8 o'clock, and I pick up on the predictive programming because there's so much of it. It's like it's rife. You know, I could do a 5-hour show you just on that alone. I mean, there was a show the other night when they had like these little sort of like single cell creatures that they had to sort of like destroy, and it's the actual shape of them is very similar than the sort of like thing that's happening at the moment. That I'm not the unmentionable thing that's been happening for the last 18 months, and it's like how they were sort of like everyone was going to be infected, and they were saying like, you know, they're going to have to sort of like kill them all because otherwise they're going to sort of like infect the whole of the earth. And in the end, they found out that the way to kill them was a certain blinding white light, which I found very strange. But like I said, there's just so much predictive programming. What you got that run from 1966, the original series, to 1969, running the moon landings. Obviously, it was to get people ready for it. You know, oh my God, look, Captain Kirk was doing this like in the 60s, but you know, we're doing it now in 1969 for real kind of thing. But it all so fake. And if you see sort of like all the instrument panels, it's an absolute joke. Are you still there?
Listen, you know that men's noses get bigger as you get older, but his nose is about 4 times the size of his other nose when he was younger.
Well, do you know something? I've got a gigantic nose as it is. Like I wish I could sort of like get a reduction on my nose. I've got a Greco-Roman nose, but I see what you mean. He looks similar, but he don't look the same. We all know he wore a wig. Apparently, he wore a wig. Even in the 60s, he was wearing one then. He's from Canada. And a lot of people don't realise this, but Scotty was actually Canadian as well. The guy who played Scotty, James Doohan, he was Canadian, but also William Shatner is Canadian. And yeah, you're right, he doesn't look the same. He looks the same kind of guy.
Get all the support that you know, because obviously he was interviewed, so he was interviewed by under. Well, it wasn't NASA, was it? But
I'm wondering whether, like, he was told he had to do this thing, you know, because obviously he's in the know, like, and he knows, like, that. Do you remember, like, he said on a program, like, he said, someone said to him, "What's the difference between science fiction and science facts?" And he turned around and said that nothing, they're both the same. So obviously, he probably knew from the 60s about all the stuff we've looked at with the, you know, we don't live on a globe and one thing and another, and he's part of the club. And maybe they said to him, "You have got to go on this space mission," you know. And what can he say? He can't say anything. He has to go along with it. It's part of his script, and he's had to, obviously, like, he never did it. He probably never, like you said, it's all CGI. They probably use old footage of him from years ago. And he never left his sort of like front room. But I found it very strange. You know, there's no sort of like backup crew or anything. It's just perfect landing back on the ground. It's, you know, it's very phallic as well, isn't it? That rocket, you know, they're basically just laughing at us. they're basically just laughing at us, Cap.
One second.
I mean,
Let's
we
get a
can see-
picture of the rocket up, Gary. Hang on. Well, there's supposedly him sitting, William Shatner in tears after historic, and then the Willy rocket.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely shaped like a giant willy, isn't it?
They love being phallic, and they love taking the mickey out of us.
They do. It's truth in plain sight again. You know, anyone that looks at that can see it's a big willy trying to break through the firmament. Like the firmament is a female part of the body, I suppose. That's the vagina, like, and then that is the willy, and they're going up there sort of like to break through.
Don't forget the little flaps that are going to come out.
Sorry?
When it's landing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when I was watching it, it was like a comedy show. It was like watching Laura and Hardy. And, you know,
I've just done a video that's on the Unscrambled Channel to say they weren't real either.
No, and then when it sort of like come down, and he just got out and he's crying tears of joy and one thing and another, and I was looking around and I thought, where's all the medical staff and backup crew in case something disastrous happened? I mean, it's no different than Elon Musk, like with his car in space and all that. You know, some people still believe that. A Tesla up in space. I mean, now when you think about that, it's absurd, isn't it? You know, just a couple of years ago, like there was like a Tesla sort of like roadster. Like, I think we've done shows about this, haven't we? Like how ridiculous it is, you know, a car in space. But people still believe it. I think they got to the point, especially after the last 18 months, Karen, that they know they can pretty much do anything they want, and some people are still going to believe it. I mean, you know, I still see loads of people walking around when they don't have to with masks on all the time. I have dirty looks off of people in shops still, you know, because some people are still wearing a face diaper, you know, and you know, sort of like nearly 2 years down the line, come March it'll be 2 years down the line, people still believe it word for word. And I'll go on to that now if you want, about sort of like a guy I met down the sauna, like with regards to what happened to him when he had the whatchamacallit, you know, the thing. I don't want to mention it because I don't want you to get a strike, but a certain thing you had put in. He had two of them, and he ended up spending 2 weeks in hospital. And the doctor phoned him up and said, "Are you coming up for your next one?" And he said, "You must be joking after what I've been through." He nearly died, this bloke, Karen.
Well, who was that again?
Some South African guy I know he comes down the gym and the sauna. He had his double Jabberwocky. I'm allowed to say Jabberwocky because that's not the word, is it?
Mm.
He had a double Jabberwocky, and then he got rushed. He got rushed into hospital, and he was there for 13 days, and there was 7 doctors around his head, and not one of them put 2 and 2 together. I said, did any of them turn around and say maybe it was a Jabberwocky that caused this problem you got? And not one of them turned around and said, yes, of course, they're not going to, are they? They're not going to. He suggested it. He said, I wonder, like, it was just the other day, I had my second Jabberwocky. Is it possible that it could be that? And they turned around and said, oh, no, there's no connection. Even though his legs swelled up like a balloon, over his legs, and when I see him the other day, I said, "Are you ready for your third Jabberwocky?" And he said, "You must be joking." He said, "They keep on phoning me up and saying to me, are you coming in for it?" And he has a go at him. He says, "After what I've been through," you know. And I wonder how many other people out there are like that. And the same thing has happened. I'm sure we're not going to hear about it, but I suppose we will. Hello?
I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, you're still there. There. Okay. No, anyway, we're going a bit like I usually do. Go a bit on a tangent. But I just thought I'd get that while it's fresh in my mind, in case I forgot about it. But,
well, to me that was another joke.
Yeah, all a big joke.
It's all madness. The 3 stories you brought up so far, it's all madness.
it's all madness. I mean, the thing is, it's
How people can follow this and think it's real?
Anyone with a brain cell, Karen, anyone with a brain cell, right, can look into any of the three subjects we brought up and demolish it. But for some reason, I think these people have been Mandela affected, and they really do believe all these
Yeah,
things.
but
They
you know,
must do.
even
That's
that's
all.
crazy. Listen, Mandela died. Winnie Mandela got everything. And then when he died again, he was divorced from Winnie Mandela. She got nothing.
Yeah.
It's all
Shall I tell you
crazy.
something? I've got two personal Mandela effects. I've got one. Do you remember the other day when you said you wanted to try and phone me, but I was so busy with my mate downstairs, like, because you know I told you he's not very well, and sort of like, you know, we was taking care of him, me and his daughter. Well, he lost his phone. I went out looking for it, and I see him just this morning. I haven't seen him since. I haven't seen him for a couple of days. And I said, you got a new phone now? He said, no. I said, I found my phone. He said, like it was in the house. Now he turned that place upside down, and we thought he'd lost it out on the street. Now you could turn around and say that, yeah, that can often happen. You can sort of like lose something, and then a few days later get back. But it was strange because even though he's got dementia, it's like it's a Mandela. I felt Mandela affected because he said, "Oh no, Gav, what are you talking about? I've got my phone here." And I said, "No." I said the other day, like I was looking around the fountain for it. I said, you know, me and your daughter was going frantic, like, because you know your bus pass is in there and everything. He said, "No." He said, "I never lost my phone at all," and I found that a bit. It was very, very Mandela affected. He can't remember now losing it. Of course, it could be he's got very slight dementia. He said, "No, I never lost my phone at all. You know, everything's fine." And you know, his place was turned upside down, looking for that phone, and we couldn't find it because what happens is he very often falls over, like, you know, and things drop out of his pocket. But I've had this before. A little while ago, one of my friends in another pub, like, he left his glasses behind. That's why sometimes I've got a funny feeling like we're living in sort of like two alternative realities. So he phoned me up. He said, "You could do us a favour, Gal, could you? You only live around the corner. You couldn't go and get my glasses. I left them on that table where we were sitting." So I walked in there, and this was about 7 o'clock in the morning when the cleaners were in there cleaning up. I said, "Excuse me," I said, "one of my friends like has left his glasses. Can I come in and get them?" Now I know they must be there. If they're not behind the bar, they're definitely on the table because we were the last people to leave. So I went in there. I looked all around the table where we were sitting. They wasn't there. I looked all on the floor. They wasn't there at all. And a guy helped me. A guy from the pub helped me. And then I thought, well, that maybe someone sort of like handed them in, and they're over the other side of the bar. So we searched high and low, Karen, all over around this bar. I didn't go behind the bar, like, you know, but he didn't. We couldn't find them, and just left it. So anyway, that night I went down the pub, and I see this guy, and I said to him, "I'm sorry, mate. I looked for your glasses. I couldn't find them." He said, "Oh, I went over there myself. They was on that table." And I said, "You're joking." I said, "No, they couldn't have been." I said, "They were on that table where we were sitting." He said, "Yeah. You know, like this is sometimes our sort of like, have you ever done this, Karen, where you put keys down or something, and you swear blind you put them in a place, but you can't find them, but then you'll get your spare set, and when you come in, then you'll find them again." It's really bizarre. Well, this kind of thing happened. And every time this happens to me, I have a funny feeling come over me. I have a deja vu like feeling. And I said, "Listen, mate," I said, I swear to God, I said, "We'll come back in the pub if you want." I said, "If the guy's on that was there, right, but unfortunately it was just a cleaner. Listen, I know I haven't got the best eyesight in the world, you know that, and I'm colourblind, but the thing is I have got enough vision to know when something ain't on the table or around." And he said they were literally sitting right there, Gal, on the table. It's like they've disappeared and then reappeared when he come in. It was like some kind of very strange Mandela effect. But the same thing happened with this guy this morning, Ken. It was like I said, it was almost like it never happened. He said, "No," he said, I never lost my phone." And I said, "Yeah," I said, we were searching high and low for it. I said, "Because you fell over, but he's got it now." But the stranger one for me was this other guy, like this a friend of mine in the pub. This was a little while ago where he left his, and they're very expensive. Like, you know, I only get these glasses that cost sort of like, you know, a couple of quid at a time out of pound stretchers, but these ones are worth about 400 odd quid. And, you know, it was very strange because we didn't only look at the table where we were sitting, we actually looked at other tables as well. We actually sort of like, we was in there for quite a while looking everywhere, under the table and everywhere. And he just turned around and said, oh, no, he said, I went in there, girl. He said, I waited for the pub like at 11 o'clock or something. He said, I walked up there and they were sitting right there on the table. And I thought, no, they weren't there. I mean, thing is, Karen, you know when you've searched for something, if something's there or not. This happened to me before. I've lost things. I've only got a little studio flat, and I've lost things in this flat, and I've searched high and low for them.
And then there they are.
And then they are where I originally looked for them. And it's very strange. It's almost like it's a reality. It's a reality shift. I call it. To be honest with you, I think the Mandela effect was a bad word for it. I think it should have been called reality shifting, because I believe like that there's a fluid sort of like reality we're living in, and like, you know, your mind, not your mind necessarily can change things, but we don't know what causes it. But I mean, I think when you attune to it, these things happen quite a lot. I've had 2 or 3 personal Mandela effects, and there was 2 just there. But I know times when I've sort of like, I know for a fact, this is why when I come in, I put all my stuff, when you get to my ripe old age, you do have to put things down at a certain place, because, you know, even though you haven't got dementia, you do tend to sort of like mislay things. So what I do, when I come in, I have a sequence of putting things down in certain places. But even then, sometimes I've mislaid something. Like I'll put something down, I'll say, well, I wake up in the morning, I think, oh God, it ain't there. Where's it gone? And then I'll go out, I'll go down to sort of like Sainsbury's, like I do most days, like I'm like part of the furniture down there, and I have a cup of tea down there and read the paper, and then anything I see, I'll send it to you or to Kat or whatever. And then I'll come back home and then bugger me, I'll come back home and then it's sitting there, right in the middle of the table. It's like there's 2 alternative realities, and like we can shift and live in both of them. Because I know for a fact, because I think I see that bloke, like the cleaner or something, and I said to him, you ain't going to believe this, like, Demetra found his glasses. He said, no. I said, yeah. I said, we couldn't find it. He said, what, behind the bar? I said, no. They said they was on the table. And it's really bizarre, because when these things happen to you, you have a strange feeling about you. And it was really bizarre, you know, and I'm wondering, like, you know, whether these kind of things happen to everyone, right, Karen? But because of us, and we're awoke, we recognise them. We recognise them as Mandela effects, because the thing is, there's still people out there that deny the Mandela effects. There's still people that deny the Mandela effects, and I mean, there's some of them that are just you cannot deny it. I mean, like the lion laying with the lamb, and now it's the wolf with the lamb, and it's like, I mean, people that actually study the Mandela effect, they've actually gone up to pastors and they turn around and said to them, I know, like System Failure, he does it, doesn't he, Mark? You know, I haven't seen him for a long time, but Mark's in the Mandela effect, and like, you know, guys like him or women that study the Mandela effect have gone up to like priests and whatever and turn around and say, excuse me, you tell us what lays with the lamb? And they turn around and said, oh, it's the lion. And they say, well, do you mind looking it up, Lee? And they look it up. And they said, "Oh, I must have a wrong Bible or something," you know.
Yeah.
You know, we've done shows on the Mandela effects before, and
yeah.
You know, something is happening. We don't know what it is. We can't explain it. But something that reality.
Just all a bunch of games and lies. That's all I see.
Sorry.
Games and lies. Power.
Games and lies. But I'm wondering whether, you know, your mind changes reality. Maybe when you're in stressful situations, you know, because like I said, that time when it happened to me, you know, when I was in that archway sort of like gym, and like I knew I was in a changing room that didn't exist, and I've still got to do that. I've still got to go down. They probably won't have it on sort of like computer, but on a microfiche somewhere. I want to see how it looked in the 50s, because I went into a changing room that was there before, and I know I did. I know to the day I die, I'm not going to. I know what I've done. I'm a lot of things. The one thing I haven't got like bad memory. You know, I mean, I'm short-sighted. I'm colourblind. I've got various disabilities that you know about, but I'm not sort of like I haven't got dementia. And I know things that happen in my life, I know if they've happened or not. You know, and like I said this morning, it was very bizarre because it was almost like, you know, what are you talking about? Me losing my phone, you know, kind of thing. It's very strange when these things happen. So anyway, what should we talk about now? Should we? Oh, I'll tell you one thing I want to mention that I see in the paper this morning. We've got to talk a little bit about COP26. You know, this climate change palaver that's going on at the moment up in Glasgow.
You have to be a bit careful. Let me just put that on a picture of that on. Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got something to say. You know, I know someone that lives right on the beach in Svalbard, and they built half a cabin on to their property in the last few months. Well, a few months ago. So they're not worried about global rising.
Well, I thought of another few things with regard to this event, this
It
climate
has to
change
be global
event.
because it's all about making money with the globe in it.
Yeah.
The global.
Well, if you know the young person that is sort of like the main sort of like matriarch of all this is a girl called Greta Thunberg. And I was looking at her name the other day. You know, I do this, Karen, when I read.
Do you want me to find a picture
number
of her?
Yeah, put a picture of her up. But I thought her name was very intriguing.
I've got some pictures of her up. She's called Greta Thunberg. So tell me what you saw, Gary, in her name.
Well, when I looked at her name, I see like a bit of truth in plain sight there. Was she born with that name, or did they call her Greta Thunberg for thunder and iceberg? Thunder for the first bit, and iceberg for the last bit. I just find it amusing. I mean, it could just be complete coincidence, of course, folks. You know, with that name, Thunberg, she's like the matriarch of climate change for young people. Anyway, you know, you always see her like she's up there at the moment, like with loads of people following her. But I thought, if you ever wanted someone, it's like, you know, Bernie Madoff with all the money. You know, it just seems to me very bizarre. Like, was that her birth name, or was she given that name for this particular moment in time? If she wasn't given that name for this particular moment in time, it's just a really, really big coincidence, and you know, or synchronicity. Like, her name is Thunberg, and you can put thunder out of that, and iceberg. You know, two things that are sort of like involved with climate change and whatever. Which, you know, I've got. Oh, that's another thing as well. In the paper this morning, all the sort of like journalists are saying, like, you know, you've got to love all these people like Biden and, you know, Johnson and Macron and all these other people turning up for this climate change event in their gas guzzlers. Like, they're all turning up there in all these cars, and very few of them are actually electric. But even stranger than that, they were saying, like, you know, they're using all these planes to get over there. It's a lie within a lie. We know that. We're pretty sure now that planes run on nothing but hot air. You know, they're like free energy machines. They might use a little bit sort of like taking off, but it was really bizarre to me seeing it sort of like, you know, they're all being slagged off like about coming over here in planes, because most of the people probably don't even know. The politicians ain't got a clue, because let's face it, most of them, if they had one brain cell, like, they'd be dangerous. You know, they're as thick as bleeding shit. They're all actors. But my point is that, you know, the planes are not all right. The cars are using fossil fuels, which don't come from fossils anyway. But that's another story for another day. But the actual planes, like, are running on hot air, and they're saying, like, all the journalists are saying, like, they've come over here on all these sort of like planes, and they're putting so many sort of like megatons of sort of like carbon in the air and all that. But, you know, there's different views on this. I mean, you know, with me, we know they're doing geoengineering, and they've got their weather making machines, they've got cloud making machines, and they've got like HARP and all the rest of it. But is anything changing at all? They've got sort of like, they've rolled out Joanna Lumley and sort of like David Attenborough, you know, because obviously he had that show, didn't he, like the Blue Planet and all this, like, you know, and they're the ones that saying about climate change. But, you know, if anything, they're causing it, and we're getting the blame like everything else. you know, they're saying like oh well the climate is changing. You're causing it for sort of like all your emissions. Well, I certainly don't. I mean, I still get buses. I've got no choice. I'm disabled. Like I get buses everywhere, but it's they're saying like that the climate is going to go up by 2 degrees, but it's just another distraction, isn't it? It's like it's been happening for the last 18 months. I hope you don't get a strike for me sort of like saying about climate change. I mean, because you know you get them for the other thing that's been happening, but with regards to this climate change, it's been pretty static, you know, for the longest time. I don't know whether sort of like. I mean, if you remember back in the early 50s, like they used to have smog. I mean, they're saying like they're talking about climate change now, but my stepfather told me a story whereby he used to work in Fleet Street, and he said he had to walk all the way from Fleet Street to Holloway, where I was born, with using sort of like the sort of like the curbstone. I said, "You joking?" I said, "You managed to walk all the way?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I walked all the way through sort of like Smithfield up through sort of like up to sort of like Holloway, and I followed sort of like I followed my nose and got all the way home." But I mean, the thing is, they weren't talking about climate change then, were they? In the early 50s, when we had horrendous like smog, because they used to have like all these furnaces.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and now, let's face it, most cars they got very low emission. They've got very low emissions. Even the diesels like are much better than what they used to be. That's another thing as well. Now, where I live far north of it, but the actual ultra low emissions zone now has been brought up to the North Circular Road and the South Circular Road. So I was thinking about this the other day. Say for argument's sake, someone sort of like as a mum that lives in Golders Green and he lives in Finchley. He has to drive down to Golders Green to sort of like give his mum like her dinner or whatever. He's gonna have to pay the £12.50 congestion charge every day now. You know, so say he's got to go there. They said there's going to be some sort of like exemptions, like for certain people like that. But I should imagine to be very few and far between. But well, what does that actually mean? So sort of like you're one side of the North Circular Road, and the emissions are going to be different than the other side of the North Circular Road. It's all rubbish. It's just a money making exercise. That's all it is. But I mean, this really makes me laugh. Like, you know, they're all talking about what's going on, like with climate change up in Glasgow today. None of them have got a clue what it's all about. None of them have done their own research. They're all just reading from a script. Do you think Boris Johnson knows anything at all about anything apart from what he's given? He don't know anything
what he's asked to
what
read.
I'll tell you what, Karen. We could run rings around him if me and you got him sit on a bench like, and all the subjects we spoke about over the years. It would go up. Most of it would just go over his head. He wouldn't have a clue. So he's gone up there with a script like, you know, talking about, we've got to cut emissions down by this, that, and the other. I mean, you know, they're saying now that sort of like they want all electric cars now to go into central London by 2030, I think, or 2040. Well, in Berlin, I know that's the case because I went to Berlin last year. I went with my mate to Berlin, and over there, he said, "You've got to be careful, guy. If you see like a sign, let us know, like with a green sign. We're not allowed to go there because apparently now only like electric vehicles can go in there." So this is what I can't work out. They're going to have to change everything because what about they're going to have electric lorries? I mean, they can do it. You get a lot of talk. You get a lot of talk out of like electric motors. It's not a problem like they can't do it, but at the moment the range ain't no good. My friend's got an electric car and she can do 80 miles. I went to see her. Like, well, I'll send this over to her actually. She won't mind me saying. Like, I went to stay with her for a few days and helped her because she's moved back over here and she's got this electric car and it's 80 miles. And for her, it's fine because. One way she's got to go to Bristol, and the other way she's got to go to Portishead. She can well do it. She crosses into Wales. She's well within the capabilities of doing it with an 80-mile range, but it's no good for most people. It's no good. A guy down the gym said to me that his mate's got a haulage firm, and he thought he'd buy one of these electric vans just to try it. He said it's the worst thing he ever done, Karen. He said, yeah,
right.
A couple of times a week he has to go to Newcastle. And he says his mate has to stop 2 or 3 times to get a charge because the range is so poor. So basically, say for argument's sake, he sets off from round here where I live, and he goes so far, and then he has to go into a station. If he can find that is it. If he can find like a sort of like a pump that's available, like an electric pump that's available,
Excuse me.
9 times out of 10, other people are using them. And what happens is they got a high kilowatt range, so he plugs it in, and it gives him 80% battery charge. It don't do it 100%. It does 80% battery charge until he goes to
You
sort
do
of like
find them in London, Gary?
Yes, you do. You find the charging bays in London, but they're nearly always sort of like taken up. So this is where the problem arises. So I said, "How's your mate getting on?" He said, "It's terrible, Gary."
1 second,
He says,
Gary.
"What's
1
happening?"
second, Gary. Carry on, Gary. Sorry, I just
Right.
I'm not feeling the best, but that's why I'm coughing.
Now the thing is, this guy that's got this electric van that goes up to Newcastle a couple of times a week, he has to stop off about 2 or 3 times to get an 80% charge to replenish his like lithium-ion batteries or whatever they use these days. And that's if he can find a charging bay. There's two things here. Number one, it takes him. Remember, I was in the courier game for like 35 years.
So why don't the cars charge up themselves? Why can't you just charge your own car up?
Because there's no such thing as a free lunch. They have got regenerative braking, which when you brake, it puts some of the power back into the battery, or if you're going down a hill and things like that. But
anyway, should we go on to electric cars then? 1 second, let's find a picture of electric cars. I've got a picture of a car now being charged, Gary.
Right, now the problem is with this, it's finding charging bays, and if you're sort of like if you're delivering something, there might be a time when it has to get there by a certain time. But what this guy's doing is having to stop 2 or 3 times on the way to Newcastle to replenish his battery. So if he's getting there later, that's if he can find somewhere to charge it.
It does seem really strange that instead of getting the whole environment ready for electric cars, they're bringing it in without getting the whole environment ready for electric cars.
They haven't got the infrastructure ready, Karen. This is the problem. Now the thing is, right, the range is very poor. My friend's a black cab driver. And
what makes me laugh is, the reason we're all driving around in these cars is partly their fault. Because you know how they push cars, they push the whole thing. Now everybody's got cars. We're paying all those taxes, and then they turn around and say they're not environmentally friendly when they know there's millions of them. They make me sick. Right. They make me sick. Government is not government. It's just governing your mind, and they don't give a damn about you, and that's what we're noticing.
They make the problem, like, and they come up with the solutions. It makes you laugh. But back to them electric cars. The range is very poor. A guy called Guy Martin that's got a lot of world records in various sort of like motor sort of like racing stuff and bikes and whatever. I think he's got the record for sort of like a push bike as well, like, you know, for the speed. They've done about 100 mile an hour or something. Anyway, he went from Land's End to John O'Groats in an electric car, and it was a bloody nightmare. It cost him a fortune. It cost about 3 or 4 times as much as what it would have been a diesel. But then he had to stop every now and then. He just wanted to try it to see how good they were. It's no good because the range at the moment is very poor. Even what they give you in a book isn't reality. This is the trouble, Karen. If they say like 400 miles in a book, they're not allowing for sort of like having lights on, for having sort of like heating on, having air conditioning on, and things like this. So basically, the range is going right down. So if they say 400 miles, it's more likely to be 300 miles. And they can say that because on a test bed, they might have actually got 400 miles. There's no stresses. Everything's running easy. They've got no lights on or anything. But the range is no good. But some of these lorries, like, you see the tanks on some of these lorries, like, they've got like a 1,000-mile range or more. Listen, someone might correct me, but I know some of these lorries have got a fantastic range. They've got 2 massive, usually 2 or 3 gigantic sort of like, you know, tanks for sort of like diesel. But the thing is, with the battery range at the moment, it's piss poor. The most you can get, I think the Teslas now do about 400 or 500 miles. That's what they're quoted. Probably reality is more realistic.
Mind you, you know, you fill up, you know, most people put, say, £20 in the car. that's got to be about sort of 90 to 100 miles. So if the car goes that far, that's okay. But I bet you it winds down much quicker than that, and you need to, when it says 300 miles, it's probably 150, and you need to constantly go and get the thing charged up. That's what I think.
Yeah, what you got to remember though, Karen. Say for argument's sake, you was going up to your mum's like in Norfolk or wherever it is,
Yeah, you need to make sure on the way there is a place that you could stop.
You're stopping one petrol station, and you'd fill up your tank because you think, oh, I've got to go all the way there. I don't want to keep on having to stop. The trouble is, you can't do that with electric vehicles. If you're going a long distance, most of them have got real piss poor. Excuse my French. Piss poor range. Like I said, my friend Sam has got an 80-mile range in hers, which is fine for hers. When we sort of like we charged it, I was down there when we done it, and we plugged it in the first night. Unfortunately, we forgot to put the blinking switch down, like. So what happened was, we got up in the morning, she phoned up and had a go, like, at the dealer and said, oh, it ain't charged up much enough. And I said, Sam, it was our fault. We never put the blinking switch. She's got an outdoor. But it does charge overnight. But the thing is, because of sort of like the low kilowatt rating that houses have got, it has to charge overnight over like an 8-hour period or whatever. But they've got these high kilowatt sort of like charging bays in petrol stations, which gives you a quick charge for 20 minutes that charges up about 80% of the battery.
I know, but who wants to stand there for 20 minutes doing it? And don't you think that the car should be charging automatically? As you drive, it charges. As you drive, it charges. You don't.
But the trouble is that can't happen for the simple reason there's no such thing as a free lunch. I mean, as you're going along, it's taking energy out, and although like some of them now have got like regenerative sort of like charging, where a little bit comes in with I've looked into it, that sort of like charges up a little bit when you're braking and other things. It's really not enough. It just gives you a minuscule amount, like a few percent. It gives you, say for argument's sake, if you've got a range of 80 miles, say, and you've got regenerative braking, it might put that up to 100 if you're lucky. Another 20 miles on top. But the thing is, what another problem is, say for argument's sake, that guy that goes to Newcastle, so say his usual journey time is 4 hours. If he was to fill up with his old van, like in diesel, say in London, it's taking him, say, 4 hours, 4.5 hours or whatever. Now you've got to add on, and if he can find a bay that's free, another 20 minutes, so another hour. That's another hour on the journey already. It's probably going to be more than that because he might go to a place when he's running low and someone's going to be on it and have to wait for them to be finished. This is where the problem is. So, yeah, Guy Martin went from sort of like John O'Groats to sort of like Land's End in an electric car, and it was a nightmare because he said at one time he got down to about one. It tells you
it's just like when they said that they really wanted us to be using public transport. They'd not set the infrastructure up, but they wanted you to use it. It's the same with these cars. They have not set the infrastructure up properly, and they want you to buy and use them, and they cost a lot more probably to buy. They make me sick. They make me sick.
The infrastructure's not there, Karen. But I mean, if there's any budding sort of like entrepreneurs out there, I think of these brainwaves. I thought to myself, if I was still a young man, which I'm not anymore, I would sort of like buy myself a van, an ordinary like diesel van, right, and get a real high kilowatt sort of like a generator in the back, a petrol generator, one that's about 5 to 10 kilowatt, which you can get. I mean, they're very expensive. And then have a service, sort of like, so someone might be doing this out here. I'm giving them an idea out here. So basically, what they do, they advertise on the internet, like if you run out of juice, like we can come round and give you a charge at the side of the road for 20 minutes and charge them. Like, listen, if you're completely out of sort of like, it's not like a petrol where you can sort of like run and go and get like a jerry can full just to get you sort of like down the road, like you could do, like say for argument's sake, if I come down and stay with you and went out for a drive and said, oh bloody hell, Gal, you can walk out of that station. You can't do that with an electric car. So maybe someone could have a service whereby they would sort of like have a generator on back of a van. So go and say for argument's sake, my friend, she broke down, she could look on the internet and say, oh my God, there's a service here. Look, he'll drive round and he'll give me like a charge at the side of the road, like. And, you could charge them for it. Say, well, I've got to charge it, love. There's got to be, like, a minimum fee, of call-out fee, like, of 30
if it was real and they were really good, why aren't they starting to change petrol stations and make sure that they've got electric chargers in them?
A lot of them have, Karen, but it's not enough. It's not enough. It's like, this is the trouble. it's like there's two where I live up here, and very rarely are they free. There's always I know them very well because they're right outside my local pub, and basically they're very rarely free. There's always, no matter what time of day you go there, because people have obviously maybe drove down there and they're running out of range, and they have to give themselves. And like I said, I think the trouble is at the moment is the range. They've got a. Someone told me a long time ago that the military have already got, because the military are usually like 25, 30 years in front of us. They've got batteries with a storage capacity probably double what we've got at the moment. So that'd be 1,000 miles, and they only charge them within sort of like 30 minutes. Now that is what you really need, but of course they're holding on to the technology. I'm sure the technology is out there at the moment. Because what you've got to remember, the early Tesla cars, they had banks of lead acid batteries like your car's got. There was literally like a travelling light battery. Underneath the early Teslas, underneath the floor pan, there was just banks and banks and banks of lead acid batteries. Listen, my physics ain't what it used to be. Either sort of like wired up in parallel or parallel or series. I think parallel, when you do it as series, like, it just increases the voltage. When you do it in parallel, basically it stays the same sort of like voltage, but it increases sort of like how long it lasts for. It's one or the other. I know that my physics ain't what it used to be, but the thing is, they were literally like you lifted up sort of like up the floor, and there was literally just banks and banks of batteries. But now they use different batteries. They use like lithium ion, which Tesla, the technology is good. Like, Tesla and Nissan are the foremost in battery technology at the moment. With regards, they're still very big, but they use lithium-ion batteries. But I'm sure the technology's out there already, because they're going to have to. Because let's face it, if they do a change like with commercial vehicles, they've got to have much greater range. They've got to have like thousands, because you get some of these lorry drivers that go across Europe and all that. Minimum they're going to want. If you say, for argument's sake, you've got a haulage company, and you've got unlimited funds, and you've got millions sitting in the bank, and you've got to change up. You're gradually changing over to sort of like electric, sort of like lorries. One stipulation is going to be, not so much because they can charge overnight. You want at least 1,000, 1,500 mile range minimum before you'd have to charge again, because there's no good having a piddly like couple of 100 miles, is it? If you go on any motorway in England, like, you see lorries going up and down the road all the time, and they're doing sort of like hundreds of miles. I was imagining in this country you could get away with like a range of say 700 miles or something. If you was going continental, you've got to be looking at 1,000, 1,500. And like you said, at the moment the infrastructure ain't there, or the battery technology is. They've either got the battery technology, they're holding on to it, or they haven't got the battery technology. Because at the moment, like I said, my friend's a black cab driver, and his mates that have got the LEV like electric cabs are absolutely a little bit above useless. They do they're hybrid. They do about a 30 mile range. It says in the book they do 80 miles, which in central London, you'd be surprised how quickly you run up the mileage. 30 miles, he probably does it. Imagine if he lived where I live, like, if he goes into central London, he's actually used up the 30 miles already. And they got a little petrol engine that kicks in that charges a battery up. Well, they're a lot cheaper than sort of like the diesel, but I can see a day when there's going to be sort of like all electric vehicles on the road, and everyone's going to be fighting to get a charge. What about someone that lives in a tower block? This is what me and my friend Sam was saying. If you live in a tower block, you've got an electric car, you can't run a cable if you live on the 10th floor there, can you?
No.
She's all right. She lives in a bungalow. So it's fine for her. She runs a cable out. We sorted it out, so sort of like it's great, really. There's an outdoor socket, so she can run a cable out to her car outside, and she got an extension lead. It's little things that you've got to know. What happened was the guy said to her, whatever you do, if you've got an extension lead, don't have it curly whirled up, because what happens is that causes resistance. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but even like if you was to say, for argument's sake, if you was using a power drill in your house, say I'll come down to you and you said, "There, Gary, couldn't do us a favour, could you? Put that picture up on the wall. I've got a drill, and you have an extension cable. You're meant to keep it straight You're not meant to have it curly-whirly, because what
Right.
happens is it causes resistance. And I noticed, I've seen people, when they have an extension cable, they have it curled around, and you shouldn't do that. But they turned around and said to her, they said, whatever you do, don't have it sort of like curled around. Make sure you've got it on a long straight line. But I'd have known this anyway. I'd have told her. But I mean, most women ain't going to know that, are they? They're going to buy an electric car, and they're not going to think, unless they're specifically told, whatever you do with the cable, if you use an extension cable, don't have it curled round, because it causes a high resistance, which I know that from me studying electrics. But you're not going to know that. That's what I'm saying. It's the same thing again. They're bringing out all this technology, Karen, and no one really knows much about it.
No.
And apparently, like, a guy was telling me, who's an electrician, another guy, when I was down the saw, and I meet all these people, and I go down the gym, you see. I just talk to people, and he said to me, he's an electrician, he said, apparently, like, the fire brigade are very wary about, it probably hasn't happened yet, but if there's a fire in an electric car, what's going to happen is the whole car going to come bloody live when they sort of like try and cut someone out of it. Whereas, with a sort of like a petrol or a diesel vehicle, they can open up the bonnet light and just put, they still have to be careful with that, but they haven't been done training. Apparently, as far as I know, they haven't been trained like with electric cars. And like I said, we're listen. If there's a fireman that listens to this later, like, he might be able to correct me in the chat, but it's only what this guy told me. This isn't coming from me, but he said they're not trained in electric vehicles, and they don't know if it's going to be live or not. So when they use a cutter to cut someone out, is it going to make the whole thing live? That's what I said. They're bringing out all this technology without any forward planning like they usually do.
Well, they don't care, because all it is about making money. It's not about caring about you or anything to do with you. It's just about making money. And so I was just saying, when they wanted us to use the buses, they didn't actually put the infrastructure in, really, or they didn't make sure all the buses added up. And
they've got electric buses. When I used to go down and stay with my uncle, God bless his soul, when I used to go down to Hyde Park, I used to stay with my uncle, like, unfortunately he's passed away now. And when I stayed with him, I used to get a 24 bus down to Victoria. It goes to Victoria, like, and then I'll get another bus down Oxford Street. But that bus, 24, it's all electric. When you get on it, it's all electric. And the thing is, it's okay for that, because that particular route, because it runs from Hampstead to Pimlico and back, which isn't that far. So what he probably does, he probably gets a charge, sort of like when he's down there, when he's waiting to sort of like come back and whatever. But it's no good, like I said, at the moment, the problem is, for going great distances, they've got to improve their battery technology. I don't get me wrong, they're wonderful. My friend's little car, it was great. You get in it, once you get used to it, it's fine. I mean, all you really hear like a little whirl of the motor, but it's very strange. It's almost like being in a Dodge or a bumper car. You know what I mean? Because you put your foot on the accelerator and boom, it's just gone. But it's I mean, they're wonderful things if the technology is going to improve. But like I said, the main thing at the moment for most people is the range and the charging time, using the charger they give you when you buy the blinking thing, because you have to leave it overnight, which for most people is fine, because like my friend, it's fine, because if she's taking her daughter to school or one thing or another, it's fine. She just leaves it overnight, and then in the morning she gets up, gets in it, goes down and comes back, and she can put it back on charge. I mean, hers has got an 80-mile range, which is fine for her, but for most people that's not going to be enough, is it? 80 miles is not enough for most people if they've got to do fast distances. But it's. Well,
I suppose it depends how much you've got to drive, really, doesn't it?
Exactly. But
I just feel that they're sticking it out and they're not really thinking long term. If thousands of people buy these cars, and how are they going to charge their cars?
This is it. They actually, believe it or not, they even had electric motorbike.
And who wants, like in London, they're on the side of the road. So who wants to be sitting on the side of the road for an hour or two while your car is charging?
Oh, and another thing as well, a guy told me, and I know
there should be a much quicker way to charge the car up.
this guy was a lorry driver, so he knows. You say it's all about money making. Apparently, at the moment, with electric cars, you don't have to pay any road tax. You apply for your road tax, they just give it to you. But in the near future, either this year, either next year or the year after, they're going to start charging people road fund licence fees for electric cars. See, they're not stupid, because they know that if thousands of people can have electric cars,
Imagine how much
charge them
money
also.
they make out of road tax. Just imagine. There are millions and millions of cars.
But also people with classic cars, they got away without paying the road fund licence. Apparently, they're going to get clobbered as well. They got you always. But the thing is that they actually had, there was an electric bike act called the Vectrix, and years ago I went to have a look at it. It's quite a few years ago now, fun enough. I went to have a look at it, and I said to the bloke, "What's the range?" And he said 40 miles. And I said to him, "That's no good, mate." I said, to be honest with you, I said, it's great. I had a test drive on it. It was very, very quick and whatever, but it was no good. And he said they were bringing out a fuel cell one. This is another thing. A fuel cell is a slightly different thing again. What it is, it's hydrogen. It's a chemical reaction between hydrogen and oxygen, and that makes the electricity. Well, believe it or not, there are hydrogen cars out there, but they don't really want the whole road filled with hydrogen cars, because apparently, it's like a travelling bomb, like the Hindenburg, if it happened. Hydrogen's very inflammable. But there are actually, not far from where I used to live, there was actually a hydrogen pump there. Hydrogen's been out a long time, and but there's not many hydrogen cars out there. Like the fuel cell cars are a different thing again. They haven't got a battery. They've got it's a chemical reaction. Someone can in the chat room can sort of explain it probably better than me. But basically, it's a chemical reaction between hydrogen and oxygen that creates the electricity that drives a car. So, and they had really good range. They had fantastic range. But alternative forms of transport have been around for a long time. My uncle, back in the early 80s, I used to work with him on the roofs, and he had a van that ran on gas, propane gas, and he could switch it from diesel to propane. But the thing is, you could tell the difference when he switched it. It used to slow down. So there has been alternative. Or what about they got the liquid petroleum, haven't they? That's much cheaper. The LPG, liquid petroleum gas. They've had that out for many years. There's all these other things, but they want to go electric. But like I said, they can have fun and games. But like I said, I'll put a business idea out there to the ether. If someone wants to make some money, if they got a few bob hanging around, get in there early, buy themselves a van and a 5 or 10 kilowatt generator, stick it in the back, because there's going to be a time when people are going to run out of juice at the side of the road with their electric, and you can go there, give them a charge, and then you've got to charge them 25, 30 quid. Because what's going to happen is, it's either that, or they can get a breakdown guy to come out that's going to have to tow them to a garage to get a charge if they can find it, or they can tow them home. But I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a business out there for someone that's willing to sort of drive around for people. You'd have to work in a small area, I suppose, But if the road's full of, I'm sure there's going to be loads of people who sort of end up running out of electric. Sure there will be. Anyway, Karen, do you want to carry on for a bit longer, or?
Well, we've been going for an hour and 25 minutes now. Do you think that's enough? It's only a pause, isn't it? Because we'll be back doing another one soon.
We'll do another one soon. Well, I'm coming down soon, aren't I? Anyway, so
you are, Gary. In a few weeks' time, Gary's going to come and stay with me.
Again, and
we'll be doing another hangout then, won't we?
We usually do. If I stay for a few days, we do about 4 or 5 hangouts.
Yes, I accidentally turned the recording off. Got carried away. No. Yeah, we'll do another one.
I'm coming down, so we'll do a few more podcasts in a few weeks.
Yeah.
So, we'll do a few more. But I'm ready. I've got to go down and get my mate's medication from the pharmacy.
Oh, well, for the hangout, shall we just stop? But don't go. We'll say goodbye to each other off air. But it's been very interesting. So we've done William Shatner, Alec Baldwin. Who else did we do?
We done COP26.
And we've done electric cars.
Electric cars. We've been right across the border, haven't we? We've done a bit of everything.
Yeah. All right,
fantastic.
Gary. Thank you, and chat room.
Chat room.